All right, everyone, we have fairly explosive new claims with regards to the Hunter Biden scandal, the ongoing IRS leaks, the whistleblowers coming out and saying, well, we investigated Hunter Biden for years. We then mysteriously got kicked off the case, and I wonder why that happened. Could it be the change in the administration? I wonder. But Hunter broke all sorts of rules and did all sorts of skeevy stuff, some of which he's admitted to, like, yeah, I lied on that gun form, sorry. Please give slap on wrist. Oh yeah, I smoked a little crack. I trafficked arguably underage girls across state lines. I am still apparently not being investigated for that. Hunter's got some issues. You'd think at some point, you're in your 50s, you get calmed down a little bit. I guess they've basically, Biden keeps him on a tighter leash now, his son. Anyway, turns out that he got upwards of $4.9 million in loans, which are actually gifts and should be taxable, from one of his sugar brothers, as apparently they're called, and I'm not sure whether that's a term he's used or if this is a term I just didn't know existed, so a sugar brother like a business associate piling money in or something like that, from Kevin Morris, a lawyer friend, and some of it sourced through China, of course. We already knew about the first $2 million. We didn't know about this inexplicable additional $3 million that came in. Now, how he accomplished this, and there was scrutiny involved, but I guess he didn't know it at the time. Of course, the IRS investigation was quashed by the Biden administration. Again, I wonder why. You're investigating my son. It's not going to work too well. Get these agents off the case and shut them up. Put them in a different department. Tell them not to talk about it. It's confidential or some shit. I'm writing an executive order to shield my son. When they started investigating it, apparently what was being done was that Hunter was receiving, on paper at least, loans. He wasn't receiving gifts. Well, the loan is not taxable in the same sense. We actually do this in the United States as a nation for one other high-in-the-news nation right now, which is Israel. We're not allowed to grant Israel money and so forth. We're not allowed to give them those things because they're a nuclear nation that hasn't signed the NPT. What do we do then? We're allowed to loan them money, so we simply loan them a few $1 billion and immediately write off the total. So we're giving them the money. That's basically what appears to have happened here. Do you think that Hunter Biden legit needed a multi-million-dollar loan when he was already making enormous amounts of money with other shady business deals, like with Burisma? He didn't need that. He was getting that for a reason, and it was being funneled through his sugar brother, I guess again it's called, and it was from China mainly. I wonder why the Chinese were so gracious for Hunter Biden. It doesn't seem that he ever did anything particularly for them, at least in an official capacity. Oh, could it be that he got Joe Biden on some calls with Chinese firms that really were worried about some bill that was going through Congress or something like that, peddling influence? The big cope. Because originally, remember, we were told there was nothing wrong with the Biden family's business dealings, and Joe got some of this money too, probably. I mean, the money is changing hands so rapidly, it's hard to tell sort of who's paying who for what at any given time. It's basically like a mafioso sort of thing. It's almost like interior money laundering after a fashion. The cope now, because originally they said Biden never talked to these people, Hunter did nothing wrong. Then we established Hunter did do something wrong. And now I guess there's more of an ongoing investigation. That's number one. And then we found out that, yeah, Joe did something wrong as well. And then we found out, oh, by the way, it did involve contact with entities that Joe claimed he never spoke with. He claimed he never spoke with any of the business associates Hunter worked with in any way. We know that that's not true. The cope becomes, no, don't worry. Joe Biden got on the calls. We admit it. Don't worry, though. He only talked about the weather. Hunter was selling the illusion of access to his father. Well, they did have access. You think that if they decide to call up and then they do start discussing business, that Joe just meanders off and starts talking about something else? That wouldn't get Hunter any money because the illusion of influence via his father would disappear. So clearly, they would have brought up business and Joe would have talked about that business. This is not so much about Hunter Biden, or even the fact that he was trying to skeeve, almost $5 million in taxable income, by and large taxable income. I mean, it's important, recouping that money, not that we ever will probably. He'll probably never get in any trouble for that element of his crimes. It's important, but what's more important to, the public is whether Joe is involved. At every possible step, every claim that they've made has eventually broken down upon further scrutiny. That Joe wasn't involved, that Joe only talked about non-business things, that Joe never profited. We know these things are lies now. Joe Biden broke the law. Absolutely. Along with his son, basically using his son as the middleman, as the bag man more than anything else. It was Joe's influence that was bringing in the dough, which is why the big guy got his 10%, because, I mean, his very existence is how you're making the profit. It's not because of Hunter's business acumen. What business acumen does he have? He was sitting on an energy board with Burisma despite having no qualifications in the industry at all. He doesn't know anything about like gas or oil or anything. All he knows about is foreign policy because his dad happened to be VP at the time. That's why he made that money. I'd be surprised if it weren't going on before that when Joe was a senator. Through various middlemen. It doesn't have to be Hunter necessarily. I think that Joe Biden just only recently decided he wanted to make an extra 7-figure income for himself and his family members by peddling influence. Now, senators have influence too, you know. Biden was on several ranking committees during his time in Congress. Now, this is a fairly explosive claim, though. The amount is far higher. It's got more foreign sources involved. Now we've got another middleman involved who probably is getting a cut down, you know, the grapevine. He's getting a few grapes worth at least, enough to make a half a glass of wine and get him a little bit tipsy. You'd have to be tipsy to involve yourself in this sort of business dealings anyway, though, because, you know, at some point you might get investigated. It sounds like effectively the agency looked the other way because it's the Biden, so, you know, Hunter unlikely to get audited. But then rogue agents decided to look into it. And then they got removed from the investigation because they looked too deeply, because it was supposed to be basically a cover investigation as opposed to getting an actual result. Hey, he cheated on his taxes and is doing weird shit with Chi-Com cash. It looks more like there was an attempt by the IRS itself to cover for the Bidens that failed because a couple of the agents on the team got disgruntled about it. Maybe they didn't like their work environment, and they're like, fuck you, I'm taking a couple of these files home with me. Also, what do they immediately do? They threaten to prosecute the whistleblowers that are telling us that the members of the government at the highest levels are breaking the law. Interesting how that works. That's about all. Peace out.